I will welcome all of you to tonight's council meeting. And before we begin our meeting this evening, I've asked Deacon Richard Adams to lead us into tonight's prayer. Deacon Adams.
Yes. May I ask if I lead us in a moment with an Our Father, will the other lines be muted?
You want the other lines muted?
If not, maybe. Yeah, my experience is maybe if everyone could do it quietly, it
Okay.
cause less problems. Okay. So if we could start, let's take a moment to turn our hearts and minds to the one whose strength and direction that we all need, and those who are in leadership of our city certainly need it with our challenges. Dear God, we come to you with the needs of our city. We ask you to pour out your grace and mercy upon our city and upon all those that we love, upon every individual, every family, every home where our residents live, upon our police, our firefighters, and all of our city employees, all the members of this council, and all those who will be impacted by the decisions made this evening. May peace reign in all of our lives and in the lives of those that are close to us. May our city grow in unity. May our city grow in all the qualities and virtues that are needed for our residents to thrive. And may each of us do our part to foster those qualities and those virtues and to make any changes within ourselves that may be needed to foster those qualities and virtues. God, give each of us the insight to know how we should change and give us the strength and courage to make those changes. Anything within our hearts that needs transformation in order to be effective in transforming our city. Bless our city council with wisdom to determine what is best for the common good of those living in Steubenville. So let us pray together in one heart and mind the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Adams. Thank you very much.
All righty.
All right, council now will come to order and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of
to the
America,
republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
and justice
with
for
liberty
all.
and justice for all.
All right. Now I'll ask for a roll call.
Mr. Timmons,
Here.
Mr. Villamagna,
Here.
Mrs. Onyebuile,
Present.
Mr. Dressel,
Here.
Mrs. Hahn,
Here.
Mr. Paul,
Here.
Mr. Petrella.
Here.
All members of council are present and accounted for. So now I will call on Mrs. Hahn.
Yes, I move that we approve the minutes of August 25th, 2020 as written. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes of August 25, 2020 be accepted by roll call.
Mr. Timmons,
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna,
Aye.
Mrs. Onyebuile,
Yes.
Mr. Dressel,
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn, Mr. Paul,
Aye.
Mr. Petrella.
Aye.
So moved. Minutes of August 25, 2020 is accepted as written. We'll now move on to petitions and communications, Madam Clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to ordinances and resolutions before City Council this evening, starting off with ordinance number 2020-52 by council as a whole for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2020-52, an ordinance adopting the City of Steubenville 2021 to 2025 City Street Hot Mix Resurfacing Improvements 5-year plan.
Next, we'll move on to ordinance number 2020-53 by the Service Committee of Mr. Dressel, Mrs. Hahn, Mr. Petrella for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2020-53, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to advertise for bids for the 2021 City Street Hot Mix Resurfacing Improvements, City Project number 2021-100, subject to the right to reject any and all bids and rebidding that may be required, authorizing the entering into said contract with the lowest and most qualified bidder, authorizing payment therefore, and to execute contracts as required.
All right, next we move on to ordinance number 2020-54 by council as a whole for its second reading.
Ordinance number 2020-54, an ordinance authorizing and directing the city manager to make application for a grant from the Ohio Public Works Commission to be used towards funding the City of Steubenville 2021 City Street Hot Mix Resurfacing Improvements, City Project number 2021-100, and to execute contracts as required.
And finally, we'll move on to ordinance number 2020-57 by the Utility Committee of Mr. Dressel, Mr. Timmons, and Mrs. Aniweble for declaring it an emergency.
Ordinance number 2020-57, an ordinance authorizing and designating the city manager as the local official with the authority to execute the project known as the wastewater treatment plant, secondary aeration system upgrade, and parasitic acid system replacement project, and complete all necessary functions that may be required to complete said project, including but not limited to engineering design services, right-of-way services, including acquisition of right-of-way, utility relocation, construction administration inspection services, bidding services, advertising for bids for construction, rebidding if required, entering into a contract with the lowest and most qualified bidder, and authorizing payment thereof, and declaring an emergency.
All right, you've heard the reading of ordinance number 2020-57. Is there anyone wishing to speak on it? Please state your name.
This is Kimberly. I have a question. Chuck, did we finish the testing that you had to redo for that parasitic acid system? And are we going to be able to use the parasitic acid, or is the replacement project mean that we are not going to be able to use it?
We are going to be able to use the parasitic acid. That's not an issue there at all. The only thing, we did go ahead and complete the redo on the study that was caused due to the high waters near flood level that caused problems with the previous testing for the bypass area. So that has been all said and done, submitted to Ohio EPA. We are waiting on their final responses in regard to these things, but the clear indication I have from them is we're going to be able to, work through this aspect.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Okay, question?
Yes. Mr. Dressel. Oh, okay.
No,
I'm sorry,
that's only
I'm
question.
sorry. Roll call.
Mr. Timmons?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mrs. Aniweble?
Yes.
Mr. Dressel?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Petrella?
Aye.
So moved. Ordinance number 2020-57 is duly adopted and will take effect upon the mayor's signature. That concludes ordinances and resolutions before City Council this evening. We'll now move into reports from our standing committees, starting off with Mr. Timmons.
Yes, I do have one thing. I've been getting some calls about 1504 Foster Place, and there seem to be a lot of juveniles hanging around there, especially at night. It's vacant. There's been issues with it before, and I guess 1506 as well. So if we can look into that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timmons. Next, I'll call on Mr. Villamagna.
Yes, Mayor. One question. I thought Chris would be at the meeting, but I got a call from some people in the north end, and they were asking me about this Habitat for Humanity, the 2 lots that we turned over to them. Do we have an update, Jim, or on what's going on with those lots that we're supposed to turn over to Habitat for Humanity?
I can check with...
I can answer that, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
So the holdup is on my end, Mr. Villamagna. I need to probably do get a title search done, and looking at redoing the agreement between us, city, and the Port Authority, who is our agent. But the holdup is on my end, and we'll get that squared away.
Okay, because they're talking. They wanted to start construction here. I forget what they told me now the month was, but you'll take care of it. Okay, Costa. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villamagna. We'll now call on...
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Now call on Mrs. Inouye.
I don't have a report, but I would like the city manager during his report to address where we are in the progress of elimination of weeds throughout the city. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Inouye. Next, I'll call on Mr. Dressel.
Nothing this evening, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dressel. Now, Mrs. Hahn.
I do not have a report, but I heard Lori log in, so I'd like to ask her if there's anything she wants to report on to council.
Okay.
No, we are all good.
Great. Okay, then no report.
Thank you, Mrs. Hahn. Mr. Paul.
Yes, Your Honor. I have no report, but I would like, is Mr. Dolak on the phone?
I don't think he's here.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Mr. Lewis on the phone?
Oh.
No.
Okay. Mr. Matt,
Yes, sir.
I spoke with you today. Moving forward, we're getting close to the end of the year. I know that Dave, he's having a rough time. This is a tough year financially, and I would like to start thinking about, and I'd like for us to start meeting in council chambers. I would like to start going over the budget hearings. I know that people have a lot of questions. I know we'd like to get a lot of things taken care of, and I think we need to do that soon. So we don't at the end of the year we're not going to have a ton of questions before we vote on it. Before we have just 2 weeks off prior to Christmas break and New Year's Eve. Could you talk with Dave tomorrow, Mr. Madison, please?
Yes, I can. I know he sent out the interrogatories to the department heads, and we have a return date on that. I'll get that verified for you and see if we can get started on a date. But I do agree with you. Council is going to need to come back down here for that.
And I know it's a rough year, and I understand that on Mr. Lewis's part and his staff. But I think the bad year that has happened,
maybe we ought to start diving into this sooner than later. I know it's going to be, tough on Dave and his staff, but I know Dave, he's pretty good at what he does, so I think we can come out. And as you said, as we spoke today, you told me 2021 is going to be something else too, so it's going to be up 2 years, so.
Okay, I'll call you tomorrow.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr.
thank you, Mr. Atmas. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Next is Mr.
Thank you, Your
Petrella.
Honor.
You're welcome. Mr. Petrella.
Yes, Your Honor. A couple items. One, I agree with Councilman Paul. I think we need to get back in council chambers, and I think we need to hurry up with the budget hearings, because I will tell you absolutely, emphatically, if it comes in on an emergency, I will vote no. There's no reason why we have to do our budgets on emergencies. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel.
Okay. I'll do that now.
And we need a second.
I need a second.
If I may, Mayor, if I may interject for 1 second,
Yes,
and maybe this will help things. So, Mr. Petrella, I apologize for this, everybody. I just got a little backed up. Is your request for executive session to go into the appointment for the Port Authority person, as it said in your email?
Yes.
Okay, so we cannot go into executive session regarding that. That employee is, I'm sorry, that person is just an appointed person and is not an employee of the city of Steubenville. Therefore, executive session wouldn't be appropriate on that. So we have to talk about that in open meeting.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Petrella. Is that all for you, Mr. Petrella?
Yes, sir, at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our reports from our committees. We'll now move on to reports from our administrative officers, starting off with our city manager, Mr. Mavromatis.
Thank you, Mayor. Current briefing for council, our numbers are up to 284 cases in Jefferson County. The unfortunate thing is 8 of these cases come from a group of individuals at a location that they all went to. And the health department's trying to track this down even farther. So the concern that the health department has at this time is we're now going into a 3-day weekend again. And if I take you back to 4th of July weekend, how the numbers shot up after that holiday. So they're doing everything possible, the health department can, to track these individuals down, where they were at, and what the cause of this was. So I want to at least council are up to speed on this right now. Tonight at 6:30, I attended a meeting at Thames. That's the ambulance service and rescue service up in Toronto, Ohio. I met with their council board there, explained to them where we're at right now with the city of Steubenville. We currently have our 2 ambulances here. They have the decals on them. We have our heart monitors are in, our supplies are in, and we're just waiting for our cots and mounting hardware, which should be somewhere between September 4th and September 8th. We're also waiting to get our ESC billing software, so in our stair chairs. Once that we have all of that, we'll be up and running with those ambulances. We also looked this past week, Chief Capaldi and myself, at a possible location that we can store one of our fire trucks. So this will give us adequate room to house 2 of our ambulances at one of our firehouses. Most likely, it'll be the downtown station. But the other reason that I met with the council out there, several weeks ago, they broke away and they ordered Chief Grego to cease any more calls coming into Steubenville because they're being paid by levy out there by the respective townships, and they cannot justify why they're continually coming down here, at which I understand this, and I briefed them on this, where we're at. They are very much interested in a mutual agreement aid, and once we get up and running, they will entertain the idea where they're able to come into our town. And I also expressed to them that we have gone up to Toronto with our fire trucks in the past, which they were aware of that. But just to give you a little bit of the statistical data, I wanted council to be aware of, and this came from the 911 center for the month of August. Okay. In the month of August, there's been a total of 193 calls in the city in August. 179 of these calls since we added their third crew. That's coming from 911, the fire service out in Wintersville. We have an extra crew on every night. There's not been service from ASI. That's caused to have the extra crew there. And this is the staffing issues that they brought. So, again, we're dealing with those issues with them. They have been extreme help to Steubenville, and we're progressing here. And once we get our ambulances in service, then we'll go from there.
Jim?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Kimberly. Okay. I was trying to write this down. You said 193 calls. Do you mean like between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m.?
That is in the city of Steubenville. Doesn't matter, it's in a 24-hour period for the month of August.
Okay, so 193 total, and 179 of those, Wintersville had to have their special crew for us come into the city?
179 of those was the extra crew that was added on. All of those calls, the 193, were in the city of Steubenville. And 179 of those were based on the extra crew that was added.
Okay. So only 14 calls for an ambulance during the daytime hours?
No, this
8
is,
a.m. to 8 p.m.?
again, that's just a breakdown for the city of Steubenville. I can't answer if it was specifically all 79s when they added the third crew. So that could be from 8 at night to 8 in the morning, or other calls during the day.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And Mayor, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mavromatis.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
Bill Magna.
Yes.
Jim, I want to commend the Wintersville EMTs. They're doing a great job. I had a call. They picked up an elderly woman, and the people called me on the phone. It happened out here. They said that they really appreciated the treatment that was given to them by Wintersville, and I think they're doing a fine job inside of our city limits for us. So they're to be commended. Rob Harrington is to be commended, and all the people that are working out there. Thank you. That's all I have, Jim.
Thank you, Bob. That's it, sir.
Can we get a report about the weeds and how they're coming?
I have two council people that sent me a list of the main heartburn areas. I've met with Costa and Mr. Baird, and we're looking as far as we can go legally. Mr. Mastros explained the legal way we have to go about it, and I'm looking to stretch what we can do, and that's dealing with the right-of-way to the city of Steubenville. So that's where we're at, and we will focus on those targeted areas and deal with them.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jim or Costa, this is Craig. Have we removed the limit on that ordinance, or are they still intact?
They are still intact. We did talk about that, I recall, and I don't remember, and I apologize for that. That's probably going to be on me again. But I think what we needed to do was just make sure we cross-reference the revised code to make sure that that revised code didn't set that limit again, because the revised
a draft for everybody. I'll have a draft for everybody so you can look at it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our law director, Mr. Mastros.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully we'll have again, as I mentioned last week, I just haven't heard back yet from our outside counsel that hopefully we can get you a report on our Civil Rights Commission lawsuit. But I think he's still waiting for word from the Attorney General's office as to the negotiations they were doing. So as soon as I hear from them, actually he and I will brief you. I will ask him to call into the meeting and we will go into executive session regarding that, but I have not heard back yet. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mastros. We'll move on to now miscellaneous reports, and signing in this evening under miscellaneous is Mr. Petrella.
Yes, Your Honor. I could probably ask this under Jim's report, but I know you've been in negotiations with the unions. When do you think a briefing to council will occur?
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Petrella. We spent 4.5 hours yesterday. Our next meeting is, we have 2 items left, and we're meeting on the 18th. And I would say after that, then we can come to council and I can brief you where we're at and go from there.
Thank you. That's all I have there.
I mean, Mr. Petrella, hold on one second. I want to make sure I give you the, yes, September 18th at 10:30 we meet again. So I'm hoping if everything is finished that day, then I can bring it to council that following Tuesday. All right? I'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Petrella. Also signing in this evening is the mayor, and I wanted to ask council to consider something that's been on my mind since I became mayor, as to the renaming of the street or alley behind Mayor Mucci's business, which is Steel Alley. If we could change that to Mucci Way. The amount of years that Mr. Mucci has given to this city and the amount of money that he has gotten for this city through Omega, certainly we need to do something to honor him in that regard. So I'm asking, however it goes about, to get the Steel Avenue changed to Mucci Way. So whether it's brought up by a resolution or ordinance, Mr. Mastros would know more about that than I, and if council would consider doing so.
How about Dawn to Drive?
No, so anyway, I really seriously think that we need to recognize him because, like I said, I know that he's brought over $1 million here to our city, and for the 25 years that he put to this city's, I just think that we have Crab Alley, we've got the Gregory, which was changed from Bullock to the Gregory's way there, and so on. So if you'll please consider that. That's all.
I agree with you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And I think it's a great idea.
Well, so you'll have to get how you bring that forth on the at council so that we can pass that.
So what we'll probably have to do is we'll have to do an ordinance and changing the name of the street. I'll get with Mr. Dolak and get the portion of the street, or if it's going to be the whole street, and get the particulars, and I can get something to council very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Mastros.
Thank you.
Well, we do not have anyone signing in under public forum, so I'm gonna call on Mr. Paul.
Can I ask a question before we, because Mr. Petrella did bring up this letter, when would we be able to discuss this about the Port Authority appointment?
There really isn't any discussion on that. That's the discretion of the mayor, and the mayor's appointment to that position is then approved by council. As Mr. Mastro says, that appointment is not a city employee. So I don't know where,
Right, but
what?
it was saying how he was not totally here for 3 years. So wouldn't that disqualify him?
Yes, so the question is if the Port Authority is willing to wait 6 months to have that position filled, then he could be qualified or put back on the docket to be appointed. If they're not willing, then we'll have to make another decision. So that's where it stands.
Okay.
All right.
They haven't appointed a director in a year, so I don't think they would be too bad if we didn't get the art work on there in 6 months.
That's true.
Right, waiting is fine.
I talked with Mr. Skirty about it, and he says he feels that the Port Authority would be willing to wait the time to pass so that he could be then appointed to the board. So that's where we
Good
are.
idea.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Paul.
I want you to close. Hang on. I'm sorry. Yes, Your Honor. I make the motion we adjourn tonight's meeting. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that tonight's council meeting be adjourned by roll call.
Mr. Timmons?
Aye.
Mr. Villamagna?
Aye.
Mrs. Onyebuile?
Yes.
Mr. Dressel?
Aye.
Mrs. Hahn?
Aye.
Mr. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Petrella?
Aye.